Brian said he wasn't going to be able to make the second.
Yeah, Brian will not be here today.
No, I mean, who was it that said they couldn't make it 2 weeks from tonight?
Oh, Brian.
Right.
Also,
So Dan can't make it out.
Yeah.
So.
So three.
You guys could make
So
it.
I can make it work. Good evening.
In and out in the first one, it's kind of
Do a Zoom meeting. I mean, you could Zoom it. Sharing out. 6:45. So
Hello,
I offered it. I didn't say that.
I noticed when you left, I think that's almost all we have left. Sharon, you got hers?
No, I need a large.
All we have are medium and extra large, so.
Sorry, next time.
There. How are you, Will?
Thank you. Good. How are you?
I'm good, thanks.
There's one meeting.
And there's, all we have are like 2 mediums.
No, large. No, I didn't have any large.
But I have, so I'll take that, I'll bring back.
And then next time, we can give it to Sharon. Thank you. I'll just hand. And Brad, I just gave you one.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
They're mandatory.
Now on.
No, it was something that we ordered for all employees and boards and commissions and volunteer police officers to appreciate everybody for what they've done over the years. And it was, we used an overabundance of American Express points and we cashed them in.
Oh, that's how
And
we
we
did.
had years and years and years of these points that had accumulated. So it was, you know, we couldn't figure out your department used them, my department used them. So we couldn't figure out how to allocate it. So sure good for everyone. So it worked out nicely.
Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started. Okay. Good evening, welcome. Okay. Good evening, welcome to the January 10th to 2023 meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we go ahead and get started? Okay, so at this time, we're going to do swearing in of board members.
We are, and the only one that needs to be, you were reappointed, Sharon, congratulations. And so we'll swear you in, and in the interest of time, we are also going to swear in Mr. Rappin for the Plan Commission. That way I can go home. As much as I enjoy it here. So Sharon, I'll do you first. So it's,
Can I stand?
you would be nice, yes. So I've got, I, Sharon Mayer,
I, Sharon Mayer,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the
that I will support the
Constitution of the United States
Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and that I will faithfully
and that I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
discharge my duties
discharge my duties
as a member
as a member
of the Munster Board of Zoning Appeals,
of the Munster Board of Zoning Appeals,
according to law
according to law
and to the best of my ability.
and to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Very good. Welcome back. Sharon, congratulations. If you would re-sign this. Now, did you memorize that, Roland? Because you're gonna have to do just virtually the same thing.
Perfect. I listened to her.
Then what happens is we'll, in the next,
Meeting on sign.
you'll sign it now. No, you're gonna sign it.
Okay.
But in the next couple of weeks, I will file these with county that you've taken your oath of office and you're official.
Okay.
All right, you ready?
Yep.
I, Roland Raffin,
I, Roland Raffin,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the
that I will support the
Constitution of the United States
Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and that I will faithfully
and I will faithfully
and impartially
and impartially
discharge my duties
discharge my duties
as a member
as a member
of the Munster Planning Commission,
of the Munster Planning Commission,
according to law,
according to law,
to the best of my
to
ability,
the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Well, Roland, congratulations
Thank
on
you.
your
Thank
Appreciate it.
Look for a pen.
Oh,
Oh, very
look
good.
at this. Brad is ever prepared. So thank you all and enjoy
Thank you.
your next 4 years.
It's the only pen I have. Yeah, I
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
think.
All right. Have a good meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, so. Okay, Tom, can you take roll
Yes, Sharon Mayer,
here?
Brad Hemingway,
Present.
Dan Buxa,
Here.
Roland Raffin,
Here.
Councilwoman Leanne, Mellon. Sorry. And I'll note that Brian Speck is absent with notice.
Okay, next item on the agenda is election of officers. Do I have any nominations?
I think I would sit before you, so someone like that. Otherwise, you nominate Brian since he's not here.
That is the, that's what we should do.
Right, exactly. You could nominate Brian. I'll
Okay.
switch it around.
Okay,
I'll nominate Dan Buxton and Brian as president and Brian Speck as vice president.
okay, and we need a second on that?
I'll second that.
Take roll.
Call the roll, okay. Brad Hemingway,
Yes.
Daniel Buxa,
Yes.
Roland Raffin,
Yes.
Sharon Mayer.
Yes.
Carries.
At this point, do we hand over the gavel then?
Yeah, so can we take over?
Okay. Next item on the agenda, do we need to do executive secretary?
It's kind of a given, but sure. You can do a motion to appoint me as the executive secretary.
I'll make a motion to appoint Tom as executive secretary.
Second that. Any question on the motion? If not, Mr. Randall,
I mean, you can do a voice vote.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise, motion carries. Next on the agenda is approval of the minutes. The December 13th, 2022 minutes were presented in your packages. Does anybody have any additions or corrections? Hearing or seeing none. Mr. Randall, please call roll.
Okay, Sharon Mayer,
Yes.
Brad Hemingway,
Yes.
Daniel Buxa,
Yes.
Roland Raffin.
Yes.
Next item on the agenda, preliminary hearings, BZA 22, number 13. Mr. Elias requesting approval of variance from table, et cetera, vehicular parking requirements off street, first lot layer of property at 500 45th Street. Mr. Randall, would you please introduce the matter to us?
I will. This is a request or an application for a developmental standards variance from table 26.6405.A-7, vehicular parking requirements. To allow off-street parking at first lot layer at the property at 545th Street. Property is shown here. It's at the corner of 45th Street and Kennedy Court. Property has been purchased by the applicant with the intent to develop it from a kind of light industrial facility into a medical office. In November of last year, the town council approved the applicant's petition to rezone the property from a manufacturing district to a CD4B zoning district, so that which permits medical uses. And the plan as presented is to redevelop the building, which is approximately 8,000 square feet, and expand the parking area by 24 spaces. There's currently a 21 space parking lot. The total number of spaces would be 45, which is the minimum required by the town zoning ordinance. Some of these spaces are proposed, and now I'm going to scroll down to this image here. Some of these spaces are proposed to be constructed to the front of the building. These are shown here in the staff report, and highlighted in red. In this zoning district, the town only permits parking spaces in the second or third lot layer, which is essentially the side yard and the rear yard of a commercial property. So what they're proposing to do is install 10 new spaces to the north or to the front of the building, and to relocate 8 existing spaces. These spaces, which are located here on the southeast corner, are going to be slightly relocated to the east in order to accommodate the additional parking that they're installing along the building. And so, so the petition is for a variance from that standard in order to install those spaces. I'll note that there are currently 5 spaces existing in front of the building. Because those are considered legal non-conforming, they can remain with no problem. They don't need to be removed, even if the variance is not granted. This is a preliminary hearing. The request would be to schedule a public hearing at the next meeting of the Board of Zoning Appeals. And the applicant is here to discuss his petition in detail.
Thank you, Mr. Vanderwood. Before we go to the petitioner, does the board have any questions of Mr. Vanderwood? Here seeing none, is the petitioner present? Hello, sir. Please come to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and please add anything that you have on top of what Mr. Vanderwood already presented.
All right. Thank you, everyone. My name is Amr Sissola, Director of Architecture and Engineering Services at the HOH Group, located in Schaumburg, Illinois. And thank you again for the opportunity, just to kind of explain this project a little bit more. Really what we're proposing is, as we discussed, I know back when we were rezoning the property, to first relocate the initial entrance from 45th Street to Kennedy Court, just so there's no traffic that holds up for 45th Street, especially considering the speed and just the busyness of the road. So from entering through, that's of course with coordination with Tom, just kind of just listening to some input and suggestions that would ensure that we can get this moving forward. So when entering through from Kennedy, considering that we have 8,000 square feet, we did the math from what was required. I think it was 1,000, I think 5.7 parking spaces for every 1,000 square feet. So that resulted to us having to put 24 more parking spaces. So with that, we laid out the plan. If you want to go to the existing plan real quick. Yeah, so yeah, that can do. You can see there's inadequate space for parking, and we needed to make some space for 24 additional spaces.
So with that, we're not touching the utilities by any means. No utilities will be touched, even for the building, function. We're leaving everything as is. As far as site goes, we're willing to do anything anything necessary just to satisfy the city requirements and to, of course, satisfy the client's requirements too. So we're trying to bridge the gap between the two, and as a result, if you go back to the proposed plan. We're not planning on regrading anything. It's just resurfacing, any necessary base course to put for the new pavement, new lawn, new grass to infill that the previous entrance, and landscape at the front, and as well as the 4-foot iron gate around just to give a little bit of sense of security. So that's really all that we're doing.
Thank you.
Yep.
Questions from the board?
Chair.
Ms. Reverend?
So are we losing any green space with this, or it's all fitting in the existing parking lot, you're just reworking it, adding spaces?
Correct, yeah.
I was trying to flip through between your proposed and your design. It looks like. We're just taking all this out here. And that's enough room for two-way traffic still, even when adding those extra 17 feet of stalls.
Yes. So we have about 24.
Yeah, I got those here. I didn't have any measurements, so I was trying to see between these lines, restriping and how it works for the two-way traffic.
So there's a current, excuse me, sorry.
That's what I'm done.
There is a current entrance into the backside of the building from Kennedy Court, correct?
Yes, but that's more for garbage trucks, the waste management. So that's more of like kind of a maintenance entrance. That wouldn't be the main entrance in the back.
Okay.
It could be employee or staff entrance, but not for the general public.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to set this for public hearing.
A motion by Ms. Mayor to set for public hearing. Is there support for the motion?
I'll second.
By Mr. Raffin. Any question on the motion? Here seeing none, Mr. Vanderwood, please call roll.
Sharon Mayer,
Yes.
Brad Hemingway,
Yes.
Dan Bucksup,
Yes,
Roland Raffin.
Yes.
the motion passes. We'll have your public hearing at we're talking the January 24th.
Yeah, they're planning on advertising for January.
Please work with Mr. Vanderwood and town to make sure all notices are provided, and we'll see you then.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, BZA 22-17, Osceola Properties. Petitioner here for this.
Yes, Scott being appearing on behalf of.
Jenny, please come to the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Absolutely. Scott.
Oh, you know, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Mr. Vanderwood, please introduce it for us.
You're the chair, so you can run the meeting however you see fit. So the applicant in this case is Osceola Properties, as you stated, and their petition is for a reduction in the required parking spaces at the property here at 8250 Holman Avenue, which is the northwest corner of Holman Avenue and Ridge Road. Shown here on the screen. Similar to the previous applicants, property owners have purchased this property, which had been previously used both as an ophthalmologist's office and a sort of a general commercial office. And they're proposing to remodel it into a dental office. That medical and dental office use has a higher parking requirement. And so therefore the existing parking lot is not sufficient to meet the minimum standards of our zoning ordinance. On the property currently is approximately 5,500 square foot building and a parking area with 25 parking spaces. The required number of spaces for that dental office use is 31. And they're proposing to reconfigure the parking lot. No, pull up the plan here. Get a sense of what they're hoping to do here. But they're proposing to sort of reconfigure this parking lot with diagonal spaces here on the north edge of the property. Currently, there are just some parallel spaces. And that allows them to increase the total number of spaces on the lot to 29. So they are still short 2 spaces. So the variance application is for a variance from the minimum parking standard to allow dental office with 2 less spaces than required by ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Randall. Before we go to petitioner, does any member of the board have a question for Mr. Randall? Seeing none, Mr. Yanni, now please.
Thank you. Scott Yanni. Yanni works just now. 9301 Calumet Avenue, Suite 2F in Munster. I'm here on behalf of Osceola Properties, and the principal is Dr. Lynn. He's here with us this evening. He's also the principal of Family Dental Care. So he'd like to, this building's become a little bit moribund. The parking lot is deteriorated. We're all pretty familiar with this intersection, Ridge and Holman Avenue. Our neighbors, American Community Bank, Tom Kirsch, and one of the things that we made an objective right away was, well, let's talk to them about this first, because they're our neighbors, and I'll talk to you. We have a shared lot that I'll mention. I communicated with both parties. Tom Kirsch, who is very favorable to this proposition, happy to see the improvement. John Reed as a tenant, and then also as the attorney for American Community Bank and Mike Mellon. They are supportive of this and said if they need to be here, they'll be here to express support. The parking lot, as Tom said, it's a shared parking lot. Right now, we have parking easement that enables each of the 3 to use any of the spaces that are in any of the lots. Both have said, the other neighbors have said that they have never experienced parking issues. There is ample parking. We are going to give a net gain of the spaces currently in the area. I think Tom had 25. I counted maybe 28 spaces, but they're very crammed. And as you can see from the existing configuration, a number of them are parallel spaces. It doesn't allow for safe ingress and egress. And so we think this new plan with diagonal parking and getting a good flow of traffic, and we actually picked up some available spaces, will be good. And also importantly, we get some landscape buffering that doesn't currently exist. So we've got a deteriorated site in terms of parking that we intend to enhance, give it a safer flow, give some landscape buffering where we can do, and generally increase the appearance of the property. I don't want to give you too much more, but I've given you a letter that addresses the 3 factors of public health, safety. I've kind of mentioned the ingress. We won't adversely affect the neighboring properties. In fact, I think they're anxious to see this improvement and kind of add some life and to that building, and obviously the additional parking and the flow of traffic. And also that we have strict application of the zoning ordinance. In this instance, we're kind of landlocked, and we have the building we have, and we think that it will fit well for Dr. Linda's practice. So I have folks here that are far more expert, here and can answer questions as to any of the architectural components, any of the technical issues you may have, and certainly Dr. Linda is here and other representatives.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members of the board, what questions do we have for this petitioner?
Mr. President, so I'm looking at the Alta survey, and I'm trying to understand, is there a is there a curve that divides the two parking lots, the north and south, from north and south?
There's kind of a, there's a marking there, is that right? I'm just looking at a photo here and there's some, I think it's actually maybe,
I don't remember a curve between the bank.
I don't think there's a
I don't think
curve.
there's a
It's
curve.
like
This
a
dark
line.
bold line right
painted.
here.
I don't think there's a curve between the bank and the existing.
If you look on page 3 of my letter, you can see where the parallel parking spaces are.
Yep, that's what I'm looking at.
There's something there. I don't know exactly what that is.
Well, there's a bold line. I'm just trying to understand if that's just, if that's just a line differentiating the two parcels, or if there's actually something solid there. The reason I'm asking that is because if there's flow through there between the two parking lot areas, and you're reconfiguring this area where it looks like there might be, is there like a tree there in a planter?
I can answer a couple of your questions. There, the dark line on the Alta survey is the property line.
Okay,
And I'm just looking at the Google Street View here. There are parking blocks installed between the two lots, so they're not,
there's no driving through.
No, you can't.
well, if you were to look on the screen here,
So you
it's
could drive
open,
from one
it's
to the other.
open in this area. In the area where there's parking here, there are parking blocks. But this is open, so there's movement between the
Yeah.
two parking lots currently through all three of these lots. All three of these lots are open to each other, and there are access easements that provide for that cross access between those lots. And no, they're not closed off from each other now.
Okay,
But there will be the parking stop or that will prevent it going forward, yeah. At least in the parking space area, there's an aisle.
Thank you.
right. So my initial reaction looking at this layout is that the reason why they had the parallel parking there along the property line was because the distance between the angle parking to the south and the parallel parking is adequate. It seems like having the diagonal parking or angle parking, the way it's shown on your new plan, is there isn't a whole lot of distance in between there. I can't see the dimension.
13 feet, 10 inches. I think it's
Yes.
That aisle,
Based on the code.
That-
and that'll be a one-way aisle,
One way up.
so that should be adequate space for that aisle. Right now, their traffic is arguably two ways, in that, I don't know if they use it two ways, but it could be certainly construed two ways.
Which way will that entrance be? From Holman or from?
So it could come from Ridge, from the south, but also it could enter at community where associate American Community has a curb cut to the north. Yeah, if we go a little further north, there's a curb cut for American Community and the flow would be that way.
So the parking lot that is for the bank, that's not getting, nothing's happening there.
Correct.
That's as it is, stays as it is. So
Correct.
it's angles parking on both sides. So cars would come in through the curb cut into the bank and then drive south to get out, to get out on the Holman. Correct?
Correct, yes.
South and then east to get out on the Holman.
Yes. Mhm.
But that drive lane in between the angle parking in the bank parking lot is wider than 13'10".
Right, that's 24 feet because that permits two-way traffic. But the 13-foot aisle going here would not permit westbound traffic. So traffic through this lot would have to circulate like this. Cars could come back and forth between the two parking lots through this access point.
So can you refresh me about the reason for this change is because they need more spaces because it's changing to a different use?
Yes.
And how many more spaces do they need?
They currently have
25, we're increasing to 29, we need 31.
correct.
And I would also say that the parallel parking perhaps not optimal for business visitors and trying to park on a drive out of that way, but
That was all the questions I had.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor. Any other questions for this petitioner?
Mr. Chair. Scott, quick question. How many employees, how many seats do you intend to have? Because that kind of dictates, obviously, a little bit of parking. Is there like 5 hygienists, is there 2 dentists, is there?
you're gonna go to my bank of
Sure,
experts.
sure. How many chairs do you anticipate for cleaning and procedures? About 11 chairs.
Who works with three to go at the same time.
So 11 chairs, how many employees do you anticipate?
It's not gonna be all utilized, it's just very, it's like usually 2 doctors that work there. So to support the 2 doctors. Right, is there a hygienist or is it doctor?
Both, so
Right.
probably, so 2 doctors, you have reception folks.
Well, yeah, it would be, because we have an existing office, not too far from there, so it's like, we have right now, we have 6 chairs and we have 1 doctor and a hygienist, so it'd be 2 doctors and a hygienist.
So probably 4 employees in the office building, you're guessing,
Yeah, right, I would say more like 6,
and 11 chairs.
right.
Any further questions from the board? If not, what is the direction of the board?
I'll make a motion to set this for public hearing.
Mr. Raffens made a motion to set for public hearing. Is there support for the motion? By Mr. Hemingway. Any question on the motion? Hearing or seeing none, Mr. Randall, please call roll.
Chair and Mayor,
Yes.
Brad Hemingway,
Yes.
Dan Buxa,
Yes.
Owen Raffen.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Yanni, your clients have their public hearing. Mr. Vanderwood, please clarify, is it for the 24th?
Yes, they're planning on appearing here at a public hearing on the 24th.
Right, thank you. Please work with Mr. Vanderwood, make sure all notice is provided. And also, if you wouldn't mind, if you get some aerial and street views of the property as it exists right now, that might be helpful for us.
Absolutely.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, we're moving on to our public hearings. We have BZA 22, number 14, Legacy Sign. On behalf of Luke Oil, requesting a variance from table, etc. Commit 21-inch tall logo on a monument at 750 Broadmoor. Mr. Vanderwood, would you please reintroduce this for the board?
Yes, this is the 3rd public hearing for this application. The applicant is requesting some modifications to a monument sign at the Go-Go gas station on the corner of Broadmoor and Calumet Avenue at the address of 750 Broadmoor Avenue. They intend to rebrand the gas station from a Go-Go to a Sit-Go and have requested that the monument sign be refaced to include a Sit-Go logo and text. I guess it's the logo. The logo that they have proposed is 21 inches tall, which exceeds our maximum logo height of 12 inches. And so they're requesting a variance in order to install a sign with the 21-inch logo.
Thank you, Mr. Redwood. Before we proceed to the public hearing, is any questions for Mr. Redwood? This public hearing was conducted and was closed. Do we need to reopen it?
We did it last time. I don't think we did.
Okay. Commissioner, please state your name and address for the record and let us know what you'd like.
So again, my name is Sean Ensign with Legacy Sign Group, 7933 West Highway 6 in Westville, Indiana. Obviously, I think everyone's kind of heard bits and pieces over the past 3 meetings here. But just to kind of reiterate the importance of branding and logos. This is the only branding the site will have. There will be nothing on the canopies, nothing on the pump toppers. This is pretty much it. And I can't stress enough just the importance of the branding standards that SICO's put in place on this. I think, Tom, if you can show the other one. We did submit a rendering of a logo that's in compliance. However, it just doesn't feel natural. And there's a reason that scales and proportions are kind of implemented into branding and logo treatments. Logos are definitely one of the first things we recognize in branding, and ultimately just driving up and down Calumet. There's plenty of logos on majority of the businesses over 12 inches for sure. I'd also like to remind this board that back in October of 2021, the board did approve a 21-inch tall logo for the SICO station on 45th Street in Munster. The monument sign has not been put in place yet as we kind of coordinate some logistics on the location. However, ownership, is kind of under the impression like, oh, hey, this one was approved, and it's just kind of some hardship of why this one isn't seeming to have the same kind of sense of approval. So just kind of want to reiterate that. Obviously, I'll address any other further questions anybody has, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Questions for the petitioner from the board?
I just have a quick question for Tom. So the monument sign that was approved for the Brandland 45th, is it other than the logo size? Is it everything else the same?
No, it's not quite exactly the same. The size of the sign is different. I don't know if I have. I believe it's. I have to look. It's not exactly the same, but.
I mean, they had much larger area to put it in than what this location has. So
That was a
assuming
brand
that
new sign.
it was longer.
I believe it was taller, slightly taller. It was a brand new sign. This is a refacing of this existing GoLo sign. So
they're limited to what they can fit on that site because it's a pretty small little area where the sign is now versus what they're planning on doing at the 45th and Franklin.
I would say that yes, they are very constrained on that side as far as installing a sign at any other location or making it any wider.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Raffin.
So is this a whole new ownership, or is it just changing the brand from Kohler to Sitco?
It's not a whole new ownership. They're just moving brands, and Royal's managing the branding for this.
So the company ownership has not changed?
No.
Okay. So the owners that own this place that haven't taken care of landscaping around the sign or the bricks that are stacked around there, it's the same owners
Same owners, yes.
that haven't done a paint job on the place and need to really.
Well, I
dress
think
up.
that is in the process of
Right.
this remodel, this reimaging into the Sitco brand and the landscaping. I think we addressed at a previous meeting that that is going to be a requirement of this, and no doubt about it, will be addressed.
Well, I remember when you came up in front of the other one, which I wasn't personally a fan of myself. That was a different site. You can't consider it the same site, it's the same place. This is more right up a residential street, heading into our schools, right in the main part of town. That site is set way off the street, so there's some different constraints. So when you say Sitco, doesn't seem why you get one or the other. Well, it's a totally different site. It's a small little gas station in a very busy part of town that's had a lot of redevelopment right into a residential neighborhood. So there's a whole different level of constraints. That's why I would think I want to be consistent as a BZA member and meet our sign norms to a T in our main development area. That's my opinion.
Ms. Raffin, any further comments from the board or questions? Mr. Workman?
Yes.
If the board comes up with a different decision than the one from the 45th, do you have any concerns from a legal standpoint?
No, no.
Thank you, Mr. Workman. What is the direction of the board?
I'll make a motion to deny BZA 22014.
There's been a motion to deny the petition. Is there support for that motion?
So, question. Again, if we deny, then that's it. They can't do anything for a year. So is there an opportunity for them to revisit this to gain our support?
Well, when you say you can't do anything for a year, you can make the signage meet the code. There's a proposed sign in there that meets the code. Right?
Right, but they do have a practical difficulty with the branding though.
Are we searching for gas stations based on name, or are we searching on price or necessity? When you look for a gas station, what are you looking for? Convenience, price? You know it's a gas station. Do I care if it's Citgo? Do I care if it's Shell? Do I care if it's BP? Or do I need gas at a certain price or a certain location?
I think you could say that a lot about any
Sure.
business.
Well, I'm just saying, it's a gas station right in Calumet. There's 3 of them from there to Ridge Road. The BP on Ridge and Calumet meets the sign ordinance, does it, Tom?
No,
The one on Ridge
that
and,
was installed prior to the.
but I mean, did they change their logos? Was that?
No, the BP on the corner of Main Street and Calumet Avenue does.
Okay.
Well, part of it does. When the sign was refurbished or whatever, rebranded, they like all these sort of legal non-conforming signs, they were permitted to change it to the extent that the changes complied with the code, which is the same with what would be permitted with the Citgo sign. They don't have to change the entire thing to bring it all into compliance, but
Or the State
Any
Farm
change?
sign, right, that came in front.
right, basically any changes have to comply. So this, for example, on this BP sign here at the corner of Main Street and Calumet Avenue, you can see that it exceeds the ordinance for the overall square footage. But with respect to sort of the logo of text, it meets the standard. And the materials.
And I will reiterate a point I made at the last meeting. I'm assuming that Citgo has hundreds, if not thousands, of stores across the United States. And I would speculate that not all of them have the exact same size for the logo brand.
I can't answer that.
Obviously, there are a number of communities around the United States that have even more restrictive signage ordinances than Munster does. We have a motion on the floor to deny the variance. Is there a second for that motion? One once, twice, three times. Motion denies for a lack of a second. Is there another motion?
President, I'd like to make a motion to accept the variance for the sign there, Ridge or Calumet and Rockmore.
Mr. Hemingway's made a motion to approve the variance. Is there support for that motion?
I'll second that.
Ms. Mayor has duly seconded that motion. Is there any question on the motion to approve? Hearing or seeing none, Mr. Underwood, please call the roll.
Sharon Mayer,
Yes,
Brad Hemingway,
Yes.
Roland Raffit,
No,
Daniel Buxton.
No. Mr. Ensign, apologize once again. We don't have a full complement today, but that is in fact where we're at. Mr. Vanderwood, what are the petitioner's next potential steps?
They could come back to the next meeting and we could take another vote, or the board could take another vote. They could withdraw the request, or they withdraw the application. Those are really the only two options that I'm aware of.
I'll discuss it with them.
Mr. Ensign, you should be aware that we will very likely not have a full complement at the special January 24th meeting as well.
I appreciate that.
Okay, next item on the agenda, number 2215. Mr. Patel is requesting a variance from table, et cetera, to allow for reduction of parking spaces, commercial building at 8138 Calumet Avenue. Is the petitioner here? I'm not sure. Mr. Vanderwood, please reintroduce this for us.
Okay, the applicant is Mr. Parth Patel. He is currently developing the property at 8138 Calumet Avenue. 3-tenant commercial building, 3,600, approximately 3,600 square feet. The parking lot as proposed includes 27 stalls. They are seeking a variance to permit 3 separate food uses, which have a higher parking requirement than an office or commercial space, which was known at the time that the project was approved last year. In fact, at the time, a variance application submitted, but ultimately withdrawn because the tenants were unknown at that time. Now that they've got to the point where they've got some tenants that they're working with, they have proposed a Smoothie King in the south unit, a Parlor Donuts in the middle unit, and then a Nautical Bowls restaurant in the north unit. These 3 uses require a total of 36 spaces. Parking spaces, as I noticed, there are 27 being provided on the site, and so therefore the request is for a variance of 9 parking spaces. They have provided some information based on their operations for the 3 different businesses where they estimate that they really are only required to have 23 spaces for their uses. So their representation is that they actually have 4 extra spaces than needed. We did a little bit of analysis based on a couple other parking ratios. One from the Institute for Transportation Engineers and one from the Urban Land Institute. And in both of these cases, using either of these alternative standards, we found that there is an excess of 5 spaces under the ITE standard, and then an excess of 4 spaces under the ULI standard. I'm not going to make the argument for the applicant, but he is here to provide any additional information regarding this request.
Thank you, Mr. Vanderwood. Before we proceed to the public hearing, is there any questions for Mr. Vanderwood on the board? Hearing or seeing none, we will proceed to the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to address this petition? Is there anyone who wishes to address this petition? Is there anyone who wishes to address this petition? Mr. Vanderwood, is there anybody online who wishes to address the petition?
There does appear to be somebody online with their hand raised.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Michael Gepfert, 10380 Oxford Place. I'm usually on here as a cheerleader for the rules and guidelines that the town has. I would have been a cheerleader for the sign ordinance in the last one, but I didn't get a chance to speak. If I need to find a Citgo, there's a lot of other communities that have more restrictive signage, and I've been there and it's great and it's lovely and I've never run out of gas. And as far as the parking ordinance goes, Panera is a fantastic place to eat. I love that, butternut squash soup. But you know where I go to get it? I go to Cherville because the parking lot over there in here in Munster is always a mess. Firehouse Subs was delicious. Went there once and would have loved to go back. But again, that parking lot was a deterrent for me to ever go to that area. We have a parking ordinance for a reason. And I mean, when we decide not to enforce it, I think there's some clear failures when we do so. So, I hope that Tom's calculations there were correct, the extra 4 or extra 5, but I'm concerned that it's going to be another area with some great restaurants that, I think everybody here in Munster wants, but we're going to go elsewhere just because the chaotic parking that's available. Thank you.
Thank you, petition. Thank you for that. Is there anybody else who wishes to address this petition? Hearing or seeing none, I will close the public hearing and return to the board. Members of the board, what questions do you have for the petition? Oh, I'm sorry. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Parth Patel. My address is 4104 North Octavia, Norridge, Illinois. I'm basically proposing what I came back last year and we were okay with 8 parking periods depending on the users. We finally locked in the other 2 users for that building, and based on the usage and after running one of the concepts myself, because I have one in Cherville, Maryville, Crown Point, I know how much parking we need for my use and the new use that I'm bringing in. And the bakery tenant is also here, Parlor Donuts. They just opened in Valpo, so they have a Southern Northwest Indiana location that they can reference for how much parking usage they need. And based on our usage, we have adequate parking. I know the public hearing, someone mentioned what the parking is across the street. I don't know what ordinance was in place at that time. That was built in 2009, I believe. So I know there was some variances given for that entire development. Most of our concepts are to-go concepts. Panera is a different animal, so is Firehouse Subs. Those are all sit-down concepts. 2 of these concepts are not really sit-down. And Parlor would say that they're mostly takeout as well. So we don't have the same consumer base that's happening, and with the growing trend of more walking population, we anticipate less and less need for the parking.
Thank you. Questions from the board, Mr. Rapp?
Mr. Chair, I've lived here 22 years. I haven't seen people walk here. I'm still waiting to see people walk here. When it happens, I will walk to the donut. If there's a community that's going to walk to the donut, it's not a walkable community yet. It's far from that. My question is, you have multiple seats at the Parlor Donut right up to 10. Is that correct?
I believe so, but the Parlor Donut tenant is here.
I think I read in the packet it was up to 10. I remember when Munster Donut used to have counter seating on weekends and stuff like that. And even during the day, you had those seats pretty much filled at Munster Donuts when I come up there with kids and families. So you could have possibly 3-4 cars taking those seats. I want to ensure that there's no stacking issues on Calumet Avenue. That if the parking lot's full and people are trying to pull in there and pull out of there, that we don't have cars stacked on Calumet Avenue. And we had to go through a whole bunch of ordeals to get Dunkin' Donuts across the street from you on board to make sure they weren't stacking on Calumet Avenue. Is there a contingent plan, Tom, if they run out of spots that their employees can't park in the lot or something and have to walk from 2 blocks away to be able to come to the facility, if those spots are needed for customers? I mean, is that something you can look at? Because I don't want to see parking problems, since we mentioned there's parking problems across the street. We don't want another business on Calumet Avenue having parking problems because we give a variance for that.
I mean, I can only speak to what our ordinance says with respect to on-street parking, if that's what you're thinking. And as far as on-street parking, we only permit those spaces which are directly in front or on the street side of a piece of private property to be counted for on-street parking or to be counted towards their on-site parking requirements. The applicant hasn't provided any kind of shared parking agreement from a neighboring property that we could use for that. That's certainly something that they could provide. But no, there hasn't been any discussion of like a contingency plan in case they, have used all their parking spaces and people are stacked up on Calumet Avenue. I think the position of the applicant is that's not going to happen given the types of uses that are being proposed.
Well, two are heavy use for the morning, right? I would guess you're gonna get a smoothie in the morning for breakfast. No, you don't get one in the morning.
Lunch is our busiest time, so parlor would be the
In the
main
morning.
user in the morning.
Okay.
And I believe they said they have a slowdown right around like lunch around noon is
That
when
would
it
make
dies
sense
down.
on the donut place.
So it picks up at the smoothie shop at that time. And the bowl shop closes at 7, parlor closes like.
They're a
30 minutes.
lunch place probably, just like you have.
Right, so basically, the center unit, which is the biggest square footage, is gonna drive in most of the breakfast traffic. By the time their sales start dropping down, the two exterior units, which are combined about the same size, they're gonna be bringing in lunch traffic, but it's all consumers coming in and taking it to go. Like in the smoothie thing, we have one table with 2 seats. It's literally meant for you to wait for your smoothie to get made so you can get out. Same thing with the nautical. It's not heavy seating there. It's come in, grab your bowl, take it where you want to take it, and eat it offsite. So the two end users wouldn't really be consuming parking. It's temporary parking.
On average, what do you have in a smoothie king wise as you're mixing stuff up? What's the lag
wait time?
Yeah.
Anywhere between 2 to 5 minutes is what we're talking. So it's not a long time. The bowl shop is very similar as well. So it really just depends on what time of day it is. I can tell you right now in Crown Point, our site that sits there right on Broadway, we're right next to an Orange Theory Fitness. We have shared parking. We don't have any parking constraint there. In fact, the Orange Theory eats up all the parking. So it's literally 2 cars coming in, grabbing their smoothie and then leaving. We also have a pickup window there that helps alleviate some of that stress, but my busiest location is in Shorewood, Illinois, where we share a building with a Poke Bros and a Noodles and Company. Technically, that entire parking lot is enough. We literally only use 2 spaces, about 3 for our employees, the others were literally consumers. They come in, they grab the product, and they go. So it's not a heavy parking usage. And then we have one in Cherville at Main and 41, which already is a nightmare based on how they did that Starbucks. We don't have any parking issues there either. Consumers are able to get in, get their product, and leave. So we haven't seen any issues with my concepts that I'm bringing in. Parlor can speak more on their concept. I've seen it, but I'm not too familiar as far as do people sit, do they wait, do they order ahead, do they come in and pick up? But based on what they're telling me, it's mostly carry out. Occasionally, if people come in and sit down, it's like a family that's coming in. So we're talking 1 car with 4 people.
Thank you.
Mr. Patel, will any of the businesses have delivery service?
As far as like third-party delivery or
Yes.
in-house delivery. So the Smoothie King does have third-party delivery. The bowls have it, but it's not a big uptick. They don't really have like an online delivery platform that well yet, so it's mostly coming in.
Other questions from the board? What is the direction of the board?
Tom, once again, you've crunched the numbers. Staff is comfortable with losing spots. Like I said, I want to ensure that we don't have stacking problems like that.
I mean, I guess I could say based on the information that's been provided, and I don't know if you read the preliminary hearing for Parlor Donuts, but they did present a fairly detailed description of their operations in Valparaiso. And I know the representatives here, based on that presentation, my sense is that the donut parking is adequate as what they're suggesting here, which is 14 spaces total. I believe they have 12 in Valparaiso, and they have a much larger facility with larger seats or more seats, and they fit within that parking in Valparaiso. So my sense is that 14 spaces would be sufficient for their operation here in Munster. The Smoothie King, and I don't know anything about the Nautical Bowls, but it's only 650 square feet approximately. 4 spaces seems adequate to me. And then with the Smoothie King, you know, like I said, based on what Mr. Patel has stated tonight and in the past, my sense is that he understands his operation fairly well and is not going to, you know, completely fill up his parking lot to the detriment of his other tenants. So my sense is that, you know, the variance request is not going to result in you know, catastrophic traffic situation. But I you know, I can't say definitively that it's going to work.
Mr. Patel, Mr. Rappin earlier mentioned the concept of having a shared parking agreement with some of your neighbors. Have you pursued that? Would you be interested in pursuing that? Willing to pursue that?
I had looked into it. I know Fred Baker is not really working too well with us. That is the parcel that is south of us. I know we had some back and forth when we were trying to pave our driveway. And then I'm not sure if Tony Gagliardi has sold his parcel to his actual tenant, but same thing's going on over there. That guy wants to do some exterior improvements and keep his property as it is. He's not really trying to do anything on his site either. But based on the data, we don't anticipate any kind of backing up onto Calumet. We have a drive aisle to our parking lot in the back. This is not something where they're first coming in and they're not going to have any space. That's the difference.
The nearest side street is 35th, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, and there is an outlet from the, sorry, yeah, and there is an outlet from the parking lot south to 35th Street. And again, there is no
Mr.
direct,
Patel's.
yeah, this is open to the neighbor's lot. And there's actually a town. You don't really see it on here, but there's actually a town.
Yeah, there's a
alley.
10-foot public easement that's supposed to run north and south. Basically, it cuts off at the Harveys because they have a parking block, but I don't know if they have it on their property as well. But I know Tony's property is supposed to have it, and so does Fred Baker. It's supposed to be a 10-foot easement from that alley. That's supposed to be public right of way to access those utilities.
So theoretically, people could park on 35th, and then you could walk down the easement or the sidewalk on. Okay.
Yes, theoretically, I don't know if that would be something that we want to encourage, just because at that point, you'd find people parking in a residential area, which is not something that we would want to encourage. And I think
But in lieu of shared parking, that could be an alternative.
potentially, yes.
Well,
They
if
can park anywhere there's not a yellow straight line, right?
people are gonna park where it's easiest. So if they find that it's hard to get in and out of this parking lot, they'll park on the side street.
Yeah, right. There is parking.
But for clarification, it's 30th Street.
Thank you.
Back there.
The other thing, just to point out with respect to that Dunkin' Donuts, is that the cause of congestion at that Dunkin' Donuts is primarily the drive-through, more so than the parking lot. And there is no drive-through there, right?
Right.
Direction from the board.
President, I'd like to make a motion to accept the variance. Docket item 22015.
Mr. Arroyo has made a motion to approve the petition number 2215. Is there support for that motion?
I'll second that.
By Ms. Mayor. Question on the motion. Hearing or seeing none, Mr. Van Wood, please.
Sharon Mayer,
Yes.
Brad Hemingway,
Yes.
Roland Rathman.
Yes.
Dan Buckson.
Yes, the motion carries. You are granted the petition. Please do work with the town for any further additional details. Thank you. Moving along in the agenda, we have no findings of fact and additional items for discussion. We do have a special meeting that's been scheduled for January 24th, 2023. Mr. Vanderwood, do you have anything to say about that?
No, just that we have a number of petitions, more so than we normally have in January of the year. So special meeting would help us get through some of those without delaying the start of the plan commission meetings under the regularly scheduled times. Both of the public hearings that were scheduled tonight will be going on to the 24th, and then there will be at least one preliminary hearing that we'll schedule on that time as well. And if the board can get through and take action on those items, we should be fine for the normal
Second Tuesday in February.
yeah, the February 14th meeting. So I don't think we'll need to schedule another special meeting or reschedule the normal meeting in February. So thanks everybody for sending me your availability on that. I'm glad we could make that work. I think it's going to be better to keep the meeting moving, keep stuff going.
Here at 10 o'clock.
And Ms. Mayor, Ms. Durant, we may want to consider, since I won't be there probably, to one of you.
Well, because Brian won't be here either. Oh, okay.
Is there any other business to come before the board? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
By Mr. Rathman, support by Mr. Hemingway. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? We're adjourned at 7:50.
So you ready to bring donuts to town? Oh, it's-
They left.
I thought they
You missed the donuts.
They brought 3 boxes last week.
Oh, was
You're the
that
bowls? Were you the bowls?
the?
No?
No, there's a-
Okay, go.
They're the plan commission.
Oh, there's the pictures.
Thank you, everybody, for your participation.
Every day's Valentine's Day.
Oh.
I didn't hear your wife say that.
Have a good evening. I want to say we get the Regal.
Which one?
I do.
Sorry? Oh.
The real Boston Bank.
Yeah, yeah, no.
I swear, I don't know
Glad I
what's
can
going
make
on.
it.
with banks. Keep that.
I know what-
Yeah.
I just stayed here. I was all set up. Hello, how are you? Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year. I mean, I think I'm in your seat, Steve, maybe,
I don't-
kind of, but
Is it,
Bill's not here.
Phil's not here. This is my first class
Do you want to,
there.
do you want to stay there?
I'm fine here.
No
You can stay here. My first class is here, because I'm, and I believe it's coming. You know what I mean? And then-
All right.
yeah,
Well, Roland is already here.
Yeah, I'm just here. I'm born better.
You know, sort of some interesting things today.
Oh, Roland said that. Just listen.
Sit there, so.
Yes, he does. Like, surprising. Yes. Oh, I love those. Thank you. Oh,
Yeah,
right.
Bill.
Yeah, wait, wait. Oh, yeah, right.
Then should we, I think you should postpone election officers. Because it's up to you unless you want to be the upcoming president.
No, thank you.
What do you think? I mean, because all the council can't be on it. You know what I mean? Well, they always like when you throw someone else's name up there when.
Did that with BZA.
Right. So, we're ready, right? Recording started, Tom?
out to this. No, we're still recording.
Okay. It is 7:53 on Tuesday, January 10th, 2023. I will call the Munster Plan Commission meeting to order. Would everyone please rise for pledge allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tom, would you please call roll?
Yes, Counselor Mellon,
Present.
Counselor Kulturitis,
Present.
Counselor Tulowitzki,
Present.
Rachel Brannigan,
Present.
Bill Baker and Brian Speck are both absent with notice. Chairman Roland Rathman.
Here. The next item on the agenda is election of officers. I'd recommend we postpone that until the other lay people on the board are here to see who wants which position. Is that okay? I don't need a vote for that. We have a motion? So we have a motion?
Yeah, so
Do we have a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item is approval of minutes from December 13th, 2022.
Move you adopt the minutes as given.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item is preliminary hearing, PC 22024, Travis Bridges of OKW Architects on behalf of Simboard Development, requesting approval of an amendment to the Lake Business Center Plan Unit Development to include an additional 9,000 square feet of warehouse space at 9200 Calumet Avenue. Tom, I'll turn this over to you for a presentation.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to pull up things that are provided by the applicant here. The owners of the western portion of the Lake Business Center, Simboard Development, have requested or have presented plans to construct a approximately 9,000 square foot warehouse connection between what's called the renovated north warehouse and the south warehouse on the Lake Business Center property at 9200 Calumet Avenue. The purpose of this connection is to allow Pepsi trucks to move between the two warehouses. Pepsi leases out the south warehouse and this dark portion of the north warehouse. And so this connection will allow those two Pepsi warehouses to be connected. The intent of the connection is simply to allow the flow of vehicles between the two warehouses. There's no intention to store any goods or anything or conduct any real operations in that area. In addition to that warehouse space, they're also proposing to modify this dock area in the west edge of the warehouse and install some new parking spaces in this existing paved area between the two warehouses, and then finally to kind of clean up this area between the two warehouses facing Calumet Avenue, which is currently just kind of like rubble and debris. To orient yourselves, this is where the Rush Medical Facility is going, which was recently came on commission. And this building is not currently here. Starbucks is located here. This is expansion of the footprint of the buildings on the site, and it's not included in the currently approved planned unit development site plan. And so consequently, this proposal requires an amendment to the PUD. So it requires an amendment to the site plan, which is requires a preliminary hearing before the planning commission, a public hearing, and then a recommendation to the town council. To show you the proposal for the facade is shown here. This is the east elevation, which would be the elevation facing Calumet Avenue, shown right there. It's proposed to match the existing building with painted metal paneling and then a stone, what do you call that, base, base course, or whatever you want to call that. So it's not meant to be, open in any way. There's no windows or anything. It's, like I said, it's warehouse space. In terms of the materials, like I said, it matches the existing. I'm going to point out a couple other comments that staff had with respect to the property. We had asked the applicant to consider landscaping. I'm going to show you the existing PUD plan here. You'll notice that the original plan for this southwest corner of the building included sort of a very formalized parking lot with trees and curbed drive aisles and things like that. The current proposal that they're showing tonight does not include any of that landscaping. Currently, there's sort of this entire area is just kind of an open paved area. There's really nothing in there. It's just used for the maneuvering of trucks and some employee parking. There's a fence that divides a portion of this property as well. The staff perspective is that if in a parking and loading area, you don't want to have any landscaping or anything like that, but in a formal parking area, our recommendation is always that you comply with our landscaping standards. That would be similar to what's shown, up here in other places on the site. With respect to the stormwater, the area where this warehouse is going is currently paved, so there's no increase in impervious surface, so there's no need for any additional retention. And then finally, it's shown in terms of overall access. It's shown here at least as an idea, but at some point in the future, there is a plan here to connect this Lake Business Center development into that future Maple Leaf Boulevard, which is planned to take the Pepsi truck traffic out at a signalized intersection rather than the unsignalized driveway south of that south warehouse. So as I said, this is a plan unit development amendment, and I think the applicant is here to talk a little bit more about the project and answer any questions.
Any questions for Tom? Being none, I'll turn it over to the petitioner. Please state your name and address for the record.
Sure, Travis Bridges, a partner at OKW Architects, 600 West Jackson Boulevard in Chicago. So we've been working with Civil Works since 2004 on the whole master plan repositioning of the campus. And this southern part of the North Warehouse has been a piece that's been hard for them to lease over time. Pepsi approached them to expand their operations and stay in Munster and at the Lake Business Center and take this space if they could get a connection between the South Warehouse and the North Warehouse. Back before the renovations, these buildings were connected, so kind of reestablishing a connection point that was there in a different location. Definitely a different size. It used to be hundreds of thousands of square feet that got torn down and all been up the eastern side of the campus. We've talked to Pepsi, we work closely with Pepsi how they want to use the backside of the property with their trucks and maneuvering and second and third shifts. So that's why the parking islands and the trees don't work for them kind of long term as their operations work. And the old PUD, why it was more of a formal entry was Semward was targeting a clientele base of manufacturing or something that would need that formal entry, a formal canopy like Tech Air has on the north side of the building, or the office buildings have on the east side. That type of entry is not needed for Pepsi. in this beach.
Any questions for the petitioner?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
as Tom mentioned, Maple Leaf Boulevard is going in there to connect the new Kenmar development, assuming that that comes to be. Which does make, right now, the only reason you would drive behind that warehouse is because you're curious and naughty or you have some business there. I've been the first one time. There's no reason to be back there. It doesn't need to be necessarily sightly, but it is going to be a new part of town with commercial, commercial office traffic, and we don't know what sort of tenant's going to be there. So it does put a little bit of a different story probably on the landscaping or the aesthetics of the backside of the warehouse. So I'm not sure I have necessarily a question. It's more of a comment, or kind of did you, I know I can see on Apple Maps now there's a lot of trailers, tractor trailers and storage. And I can imagine the logistic maneuvering that happens in that space. I guess the question is, has there been consideration for sort of frontage aspects of it by the tenant?
I think the first time Simborg learned about this new development was at our meeting with the tenant. And I know they've had conversations with Pepsi directly to have a connection point just at the Pepsi warehouse, which is just to the south of this. And we offered up and had a discussion of, would it be better to have the access point of the business center to have the other truck traffic that comes off the north warehouse have access. We offered up that we could look at it and look at it, but we hadn't got much past kind of the aesthetics of it. I'm not aware of that full project.
Yeah, as part of our conversations with Saxon Partners, part of what they're doing is completing the bike path connections throughout town. And we're discussing with them which side of the Maple Leaf Boulevard the bike should be, how it crosses underneath the train. So it's not only probably the sort of commercial or office worker traffic, but also becomes like a residential bicycle corridor.
Connects the bike path. We talked about the bike path and throughout the development, keeping the bike path and potentially adding to some of those amenities. It'd be interesting to understand kind of what the right of way you're gonna have off this property line and what kind of landscaping you can put in the back to help with that frontage or a wall or something like that. But right now, with the amount of truck traffic, that road kind of sits right on the property line. Pepsi.
Yeah, there is no really, the road itself is kind of pushed as close to that property line as possible in order to stay out of everything to the west is Scotland. So they're trying to keep the road hugging that property line. It's 100 feet wide right away, but the road is on the eastern sort of portion of it. So there's not a ton of space to do any kind of landscaping, screen of it.
I'm sure Simborg and the multiple owners of the business center would have conversations with the town about it.
Okay, I think that sounds important. More important than it normally would be without considering it's one of the final parcels of land that we have, one of the few remaining parcels of land we have to develop.
Any other questions?
No, I would say, Steve beat me to it, but I was to say the exact same thing because now that is no longer going to be a back. We're going to have a hotel over there too. So what you're going to see, it's just going to be a little more visible overall.
That big business center has a hotel in it as well on the north side of it.
On the-
But you want
But you don't have to-
going that way as much, right?
They won't drive by that parks. And I agree with staff on the landscaping, keeping even like you said, Tom, about the landscape being consistent with our code. I agree with that. And then I had a question about Says the vertical metal siding color to match office and building, and then the same with the base. The last time we were approached and we gave approval, I don't know which of us were here at that time, but I believe it was for the new Rush. I believe, maybe you'll remember Tom Simberg was here, and he said, yeah, it'll match the office building. When I look at it, the metal, I don't know if anyone else has noticed, but it's not the same kind of corrugated metal. It's thinner, it doesn't look the same. And so,
The developer of the Rush building, I don't believe it was Simward.
he was here, Mitch was here though,
Yeah, it was here.
and said it would match, and it didn't. And so I don't know, which one are we matching? Are we matching, and is it just matching color? I feel like, because when I saw it, I was really disappointed because I thought, well, it's of the same look, but it looks less expensive, frankly, and I'm sure that's probably the case.
That's why you don't give them the occupancy permit.
Pardon me?
You don't give them an occupancy permit if it doesn't.
But I don't,
say.
I think it was, and I don't know if anybody else, I caught it afterwards, because on a picture, it looks like it
Well, you
is
assume
corrugated
that-
metal. You assume when someone says it's gonna
That
match.
you
it's
have
gonna
the
match.
specs of what the siding was, it should have been that same specs.
Mm-hmm.
And so if Mr. Simborg didn't represent those comments and accuracy, he should be here to address that, to be honest with you.
OKW had nothing to do with the 18,000 square foot renovation building in the center. We
Right.
did the office building in the north and the north warehouse. Our intention for this property, and this project is to match that
same
north
specs.
office with that same spec. And that's the work that we have produced.
But does Mr. Simborg lease that space out, or did he sell that space?
The adapted office building here, that's owned by the, well, they used to be called Chicago Area Health and Science Trust, the group that came in to get the BZA amendment for the sign program. So that's no longer owned by Simborg. There's in the staff report, I tried to show the two parcels that are still under ownership.
But how do we enforce like on PDs like this on covenants, Tom? When you have architectural standards of the covenants and the same are presented.
Well, the Lake Business Center doesn't have any specific architectural standards like that are written down. So they're basically kind of approved each time there's a development plan approval or like a finding of development amendment. So those are kind of approved on a one individual basis. And thus far, I think the plan commission has kind of been using precedent from previous approvals to say the next one will conform to the previous.
Well, I remember before your time, sitting there with your group, looking at the samples in that building, the standards of being used there that were approved on that building. So if we're not
They
using
were-
the same siding, there's a problem.
That same material we used on the retail.
I sat in there inside that spec when it's all open and looked at it and they did the mock-ups.
Right. And what I'm saying though is, for example, in this, that happened for that building or for that portion of the development, but it wasn't stated anywhere, for example, for this new warehouse, because it wasn't on the plan, right? It didn't say like all future buildings will be made out of this or something.
I missed that meeting if that was approved. I wish I did.
One and two, I don't know if those panels are actually brick. They look like panels of, they don't look like brick, but I mean, I don't know. I just feel like we were given, it's going to match. And now as I'm reading, like maybe he just meant match color, but I don't appreciate trying to be fooled to just get some, but
If I can clarify.
Yeah.
Tony Gravel with Support Development, and I run the general construction.
mhm.
All of the metal panels are exactly the same manufacturer, with the exception of the north office. So all the retail buildings and what is now where Rush is, all the same product, it's Firestone product. They may change their profile slightly from,
It's thinner. Do you notice, right? You see it.
if I said yes, I'd be lying. If I said no, I'd be lying. As
I can
comes
see it
out-
from the road.
I'm not gonna disagree with you, it might, but I can guarantee you it's all Firestone product, we get all the product through Crowell's Roofing, they do all the installation. Excuse me, so it's all definitely the same product through Firestone, it's all the same color, it's all the same spec,
It's all the same color, yes.
yes. So, and does the profile change slightly from a couple year developments that we did through the Starbucks, hot dogs, meat ends and noodles? Like one between the north and south, says 12, 13. So those profiles may change, and if you say they look thinner, I'll agree.
Well, it should be a gauge. I mean, a gauge is a gauge on a
Yeah, I was
panel,
gonna
right?
say, it's not a
Right,
level.
but does Firestone change that or not? I could
Well, I
probably
don't know
go
if
back
it's
in the
16
store
or
and
20
find
or
out for
22.
you.
I mean, they
Right,
would have a spec on that.
right. We could certainly find out.
Right. I mean, I
But-
can text Pete tonight when I get home and I'll ask him, you
We
know?
can,
Right.
and I mean, if you'd like me to find that out. I
I'm
can.
just curious. I mean, like
Yeah,
I said,
but
it's-
we didn't try to pull the wool over your eyes. It's all the same stuff I ordered from Corellis every time we did the projects. So I just wanted to clarify that for you. We didn't try to sell you on something different than what we proposed.
We just have a history. It wasn't you, it was.
I know, and that's why I wanted to
myself, and
step
have a
up here. I didn't
history
want
of-
you to think we were trying to, because
Yeah.
when I order
Well,
something, it's.
You want the building to match too, right? It looked like an eyesore.
Absolutely, yeah. It's what Travis said we would match. That's all gross. It's like, we need to get some more of that side. So I just wanted to clarify. that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So before you come again in front of the planning commission with the public hearing, are you intending to work with staff to take a look at some of those issues that were asked upon about, you know, obviously that Maple Leaf Crossing roads can be a high traffic area, coming up with some kind of plan? So things are, is it possible to have things shielded, or like you mentioned, maybe dressed up a little bit back there? It's a changing road that goes through.
Well,
Do you have any ideas on what the town would like to accomplish?
I would say maybe as a compromise between, you know, keeping that entire expanse sort of clear and allowing for, you know, freedom of movement within that paved area. You know, the equivalent landscaping could, I'm just throwing out an idea here, so if you don't like it, that's fine too. The equivalent landscaping could potentially maybe be placed along the edge of the property, along the town's right of way there as a screen. I'm looking at the site plan. It doesn't appear to have a whole lot of anything shown in this area here. I think it's probably just kind of, right. So maybe one idea is rather than put anything in here, you know, it could be placed along here as a screen.
We're also adding landscape to this project on the east side of the lake that was under the original BZA.
Right.
We are adding
In this area.
more green space.
Yeah, that part will be nice. I mean, you can see with the pictures I walked through as well. It's I think the word you used was rubble. Rubble.
There's been some hardwood ivy kind of planted there, that kind of probably grow and screen some of it, like.
Take forever to grow. Also, I'm wondering if this wall, you know, it's 74 feet wide. And I realize it's set back a little bit. I mean, is there any way that we can add some trellis work or something? I know it's kind of like, you know, an alley space. Maybe that would be tricky to have things grow, but it is pretty wide. I mean, that wall is so, you know, it's just kind of weak. Yeah. Is that something we can request, or like a true formal landscape plan would be nice to see, something that can be committed to.
You mean in this area that they're saying to be cleaned?
Yes, right there, yes, and on the backside, but.
This is architect talking to architect, so you guys are on the same wavelength.
I mean, yeah, you can ask for that if that's something that you want to see.
Who's gonna walk that? Who's gonna actually see that landscape in that little strip?
In this area, well, anybody,
That parks right in front of it?
well, it's visible probably from Calumet Avenue.
Yeah, if they're doing 35 to 40 miles an hour, so you're not gonna see it.
Well, and in my opinion, it's not just,
Unless you're walking.
it's not just walking, it's about softening space, lessening the, you know, heat loads, and it's creating, you know, a green space that benefits.
There's a really use that green space.
I'm not saying anybody's gonna use it. I'm
So
saying
why
it's
put it
gonna-
there? Is my point. I'm not understanding this right now.
Well, you don't want any rubble there, where else?
Well, no, but
It's either you
he
park
could,
it,
he
pave
could,
it.
well, he could act, they could actually just put additional sheet panel, just make it look like it's completely closed from the front. And then be done with it, and then have them landscape the side, where we're planning on putting the road. Nobody would see that, no one's gonna see it there.
I mean, I'd love to ask for a green roof over everything, but, I'm holding back on that. So, I'm just saying.
I'm
we
just,
could-
to invest that kind of money into that area, there's no one gonna walk, no one's gonna walk from there and go into that green space.
Seed blanket is cheap though.
What?
Putting seed blanket down is cheap. It's obviously just a maintenance.
I'm just
cut,
saying,
right?
I'd rather them invest that money in their landscaping on the sides where the turn is in the back of the road. Than invest a whole bunch of money in there. But that's just.
Are you suggesting like some kind of a fence or something as a screen behind the?
Whatever, or not, it's just whatever.
Still have to maintain it, right? You can't have weeds going all the way up in there, right? So it's either you put a hard surface down or you put a seed blanket down that you have to maintain. But if you put a fence there, you can have weeds growing up 8 feet high and no one ever back there maintaining it, right?
We have had that issue on the property before with areas not being maintained.
So that's the easiest way to run a mower down there.
I'm not saying that's the case right now. I know the new company's been doing a nice job with their portions, but I don't know what parts and work still does, but we did have some issues at times. I don't know if you guys remember.
The Meathead's building was
things-
owned by someone else, wasn't cutting.
But overall, yeah, if we want it, overall, I think we want it to be attractive. I can see that rubble from there. I hear what both Andy and Rachel are saying. And I think, basically, we don't want any of our buildings to look bleak. We want there to be a softness around them, but I also see what Andy's saying, if we're gonna put money into land, or not us, if you're gonna put money into landscaping, it might be a more valuable spot to have it, where it's more impactful.
You could actually put artificial turf in there. No maintenance.
I don't
Never
know
see the
that
cost of that stuff.
what that
I think
does
you
for
must be
you.
happier to put a seed blanket down, wouldn't you? As an architect?
For,
Yes. Otherwise you call sprint turf off the field turf and see what that costs.
Doesn't the,
right, of one.
oh, Mr. Chairman, yes, doesn't the planned unit development still call for a future office building?
Yes.
To be there, I mean, to that point, and all that parking, that hasn't been developed yet, and I think we gave not a variance, but a waiver, or whatever it was called, right? To actually develop that whole parking area, because it didn't make sense for the users yet, but that's still part of the future plans, is to have that. You're coming off of Franlin, you go straight back, there could be a new office building there, all parking around it. So this area would eventually become much more visible as the site is develops.
Or you might need parking later on. Who knows what the use is, right?
Well, and maybe that future office building, maybe they want to have lunch over there in the summertime when it's nice. I mean, maybe they are packing their lunch. I don't know. I'm just thinking for future. Right, it could be a wind tunnel. but-
Or it's shielded from.
Mm.
No, I like the idea of what you mentioned of in the back to look at a screening and landscaping, more protection from the road, and allow it to still be open and functional for maneuvering these.
I'm gonna have to ask, what's the timeline of the road development? Because the development of this link, Pepsi isn't quickly into the new space. And we're collecting rent on that, and part of all that is getting this link constructed,
As a member of planning commission, I wouldn't have a problem if you had a contingency plan. I don't have a problem with the connection in between, but knowing that once that road is done, you have to have some kind of a plan that will be at your expense once that's done, but there has to be some kind of a plan in place, ready to go. So you can move along. That's what I would recommend. And you can work with staff before the next month to have a plan on the drawing. Conditionally, you don't have to, I don't care if you put it in now or when the road's put in. And then, you do it as conditional variance, right?
I think that makes sense. The plan, if everything goes according to plan, is to begin working on some of the road network like this year. But there are still a number of moving parts that need to be, like different approvals that need to be made, and things like that. So, I do think that maybe that's a good idea, because if the road, never
Goes in,
then who cares what the price like really back there? So,
just there's a plan ready to be executed once that road goes in. The town will give you so much timeline to finish it.
Okay.
If the town could give us
Yeah.
a drawing of that, kind of locations, like a survey of it, we could take a look at it and come up with a plan.
Right.
Yeah.
Currently, we don't have anything beyond the table conversation.
Right.
So-
But I'm sure staff will work with you as a concept, and then you guys have an idea of what.
yeah.
Concepts hold on the court. Concepts hold on the court. Hey, chocolate.
No, because we would provide.
You can draw a plan.
You're actually saying, hey, we want you to put landscaping in, but we don't want you to put it in right now. But you have to say, okay, so that you can develop this right now.
Well, you can
require
conditions.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
I'm sure it's enforceable, properly drafted.
Okay, that's what I asked. That's what I want to know. And then he wants an idea of what we want, so we have to figure out what we want so we can show him before next month.
I think staff kind of an idea, what you drew up, right?
I mean, I think we could work on something for the screen.
Yeah, it's gonna be what, like $2 million, you know?
It's not that much parking space there.
All right, that's all I'm saying.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I think the contingency or what do you call it? Conditional. To Tom's point, if that road doesn't get built, it would, not need to be created. So that's it. for me.
That's it? Anything else? Well, that being said, since this is a preliminary hearing, looking for a motion to set this for public hearing. So we have a motion, we have a second.
I'll second.
Tom will have you call roll.
Councilor Mellon,
Yes.
Councilor Colbert,
Yes.
Councilor Tulowitzki.
Yes.
Rachel Brannigan,
Yes.
Roland Raffin.
Yes. Please work with staff so you're properly ready for the next meeting.
Thank you very much.
All right. So we have no public hearings. Next thing we have is findings of fact, BC 22022. The Carmelite Fathers of Indiana requesting approval of developmental plan for a building arcade addition at 1628 Ridge Road. You got a chance to review these findings of fact, and so what's the pleasure of the commission?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the findings of fact for docket number BC 22-022.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Other business, additional items for discussion? Nothing, anyone? Okay. Next meeting is scheduled for Valentine's Day.
On Valentine's Day, really?
2023. What's that?
Down Valentine's Day, really?
I said every day's Valentine's.
I know, I'll tell you.
Or that, you know?
Okay.
All right.
Interesting.
My confuses by me about this.
I know.
I do
actually
too.
celebrate the 15th.
I'll bring you all a flower.
I'll tell you.
Okay. All right, that being said, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Is
Move that we adjourn.
your comment related to?
We have a second?
Changing the
We
date?
have a motion second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Huh?
It's too busy.